Okay, so welcome back. In this episode, we're dealing with the missing scientist updates and a potential link that I found between specific cases. So that'll be in the back end of the video. And the cases that I'm covering in this video overall will be Grillmair, Casias, Chavez, Reza, McCasland, Garcia, and Lane. So if you can hit that like button, that'd be massively appreciated. And even more so if you can subscribe as well. Also, just a quick note, I've moved all the podcasts over to the Plausible Pods page. It just makes the homepage a bit more friendly to navigate, as it were. So, kicking off the Grillmair incident. This took place in February of this year. The suspect, Freddie Snyder, is yet to be tried for this. It has been noted there's very little social media presence of him. There was apparently one account from 2023 stating he was married. Also of note is, whilst it's the sources are not really reputable as such, it's from online forums. It has been noted that in this area he's known as a bit of a bad egg, as it were. But again, these could be bots, there could be random people, could be anyone. It's just worth mentioning that there were some comments mentioning that. He's also, on a further note, he's so far denied the charges against him as well. And I can't really find any public statements by him about the incident at all. Also of note in this case, which I'm not sure if it's really been picked up or not. I did mention it in the addendum video, I believe. There was another murder in this area, literally a couple of minutes away from Grillmair. And it was discovered a month after Grillmair, but whereby the victim is known as a male and no identification has been found on this person at all. No suspect has been found. And apparently, and quite horribly, he was found decomposed in a large drum just off the highway. So in a small place like Clano, I'm surely this is a bit odd, so close together. It's not directly linked to the missing scientist. I get that, but I think it's something I'm going to keep an eye on with that case as well. And strangely enough, I tried finding the case data on Namus. So Namus is the website whereby you can locate if there's any deceased people that they don't know the identity of. You can find out information about the case surrounding that to help identify these people. And it doesn't seem to be a case for him for this person on there, but there's definitely the news story that was reported. Also, not far away in Apple Valley, there were some human remains that were found at a house on the 26th of June, not long ago. It's about a 40-minute drive, and it's pretty much the nearest town to this area. And it's pretty much just one road all the way down. So I think that's quite interesting. I don't know if there's something going on there. Maybe not. Maybe it's something just purely coincidental. So moving on, there's still no new information on Monica Reza. Despite her vanishing without a trace and numerous searches, and don't forget, given the recent coverage, as with all these cases, people will be on the lookout as well. And even searching the relevant areas off their own back to go into these areas. I've seen some fantastic YouTube channels of people going out and investigating these sort of areas. And there's still nothing to come of this. There were comments made by a Doug McGregor, who apparently frequently investigates such disappearances like this. His credentials in this field are extensive, such as being a geoprofiler who helps law enforcement agencies map and analyze the locations and timelines of such incidents. So very skilled to comment on such matters as this case. And he noted this one in particular to be strange. So in an interview with LA Magazine, he stated, and quote, "I've seen numerous cases where hikers go missing. Usually it's a case of a lost hiker. A lot of times they're alone, pretty harsh terrain, but this is a baffling case." And again, in that article, which is very, very interesting and worth the read, I'll put the link below. He pointed out to several details that raised the brow, as it were, such as only two known witnesses have publicly placed Reza on the trail. The only item recovered was a beanie. Search dogs reportedly tracked her scent only to the beanie before the trail ended abruptly. He does further raise the issue of why, despite all the searches, no further data has surfaced, which is incredibly valid. Why there are no other indications of her route? Why can't the trackers pick up the direction after the beanie location? Why the scent dogs and stuff? Why does it stop abruptly at that beanie? In this one, there is a clear marker point of where she was at the location of this beanie. So we have that exact location, and yet the sniffer dogs, any sort of trackers that go here can't seem to find any other scent, any other trace of her from that location. It's kind of strange to other cases whereby you might maybe have a rough area and you have to locate someone approximately. This kind of has a bang on location. So if you do 360-degree around that and try and find some tracks, it doesn't apparently seem to be any. So we can see from the pictures, the first is her hat location. The second is her last known location. I have to say, I'm not entirely sure how verifiable these coordinates are, but it seems to be the consensus that this is the location. Now, if we look where the trails are, she appears to be pretty much directly on a trail. All right, her beanie was a bit off the trail, but it's not a million miles away. Also, she was an experienced hiker and a scientist. I'm pretty sure she's aware that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and there was a road north of her position. She was also an aerospace engineer who hiked, so I'm certain that she would have known how to guide herself by numerous details around her. I mean, looking at the image of her, she's a sensible hiker. In this one, she even has a walkie-talkie, and this is an area she's hiked before. Here are pictures of her with a Mount Waterman picture. Also, being only 4 miles into the hike, and we can see from the map, even if she did go astray a little, it's not that far from the road. Like she would know roughly what time of day it was, enough to direct her north from the sun's position. The weather was clear and mild with no rainfall and around 23.3 degrees maximum temperature that was, so not exhausting heat either. It was, it was described pleasant for hiking. Also, drones searched this area. Look how sparse it is. It wouldn't be hard to find someone in this area. And I think Doug pointed this out as well. Like looking at the sparseness of the ground, the cases he's kind of worked on, like you would see something there if from a drone. Highly likely, something's fishy with this one. Definitely, I feel. This kind of logic, I suppose, applies to the others as well. Neil McCasland, an experienced hiker and an outdoorsman, a military man, still nothing, no news. There was an update with Anthony Chavez, and I stated in a previous video that I couldn't find a record of him in terms of his qualifications or employment, that kind of thing. And stated this could actually be due to the level of secrecy of his work, that if someone works in a highly restricted field, this information isn't readily available, which it transpires may not be far from it. Recent information says he may have been working on quantum physics experiments with an unnamed scientist at Los Alamos lab. Again, though, Chavez seemed like the sort of person who would know his way around the area that he went missing in. If you have a quick look at his personality profile, he seems like the sort of person who would not be unprepared for certain eventualities. He didn't have a mobile phone even, presumably to stem any fear of being tracked. He left his cigarettes behind. That's a massive thing for a smoker to do. It just strange. It doesn't add up. Now, there are further updates in the Melissa Casias case. So I did release a video previously saying about they've obviously recovered her body and everything like that. So there are further updates to this as well. So despite being located and bizarrely having a handgun next to her body, despite her family saying that she never owned one, her cause of death has still not been released. Further to this, News Nation reported that they spoke directly with the family, and in the location that her body was found, after police teams left the scene, her family done their own investigation, hiring professionals, and found more further evidence, more bones apparently, an orange peel, torn up bits of paper with her handwriting on them. Something isn't right here. If this is true, it just doesn't sit right with me. And we have to assume this is true, as it seems to come from a news station, albeit a controversial one. But details like this wouldn't be the sort of thing that they would embellish, shall we say? So, if we take it as given of these things were found after the police investigation, for a start, if it was a cover-up, you wouldn't expect this kind of evidence to remain there. You would expect that to be gotten rid of, I suppose, as opposed to be left at the scene. So it makes you wonder, why was this found afterwards? So at this stage, we ask ourselves, are these normal disappearances? I personally don't think they are. And if they are not, then that by default opens up other questions and other possibilities. If these aren't normal, you can't therefore rule out foul play, which means you can't rule out foul play by anyone or something else, which is sinister that we haven't thought of yet. So when I'm looking at these cases, I think there are two questions which follow on from another. Is there any link between these cases? And following that, Do these cases keep circling back to a certain ecosystem, as it were? So Casias and Chavez have both been linked to Los Alamos. McCasland was reportedly still connected to Sandia National Laboratories. Garcia is different because he was not a scientist. But in my previous video, I showed the reported link between Garcia and Honeywell or the KCNSC, New York, Mexico operations in Albuquerque. So Garcia does not necessarily fit through the scientific research part of this, but he may fit through the contractor property site support or national security infrastructure side on the same wider system. That's where Sandia becomes important, where McCasland was linked to. Sandia is not just some random laboratory in the same state. Sandia began historically as Los Alamos's Z division, the ordnance design, testing and assembly arm of Los Alamos National Laboratory. It later became a separate laboratory, but that origin matters because it shows Sandia and Los Alamos are historically connected within the weapons engineering and national security mission. In the modern period, Sandia is managed by National Technology and Engineering Solutions of Sandia, a wholly owned subsidiary of Honeywell International. For the NNSA KCNSC is also managed, and that's where Garcia was linked to, is also kind of managed by a Honeywell entity, Honeywell Federal Manufacturing Technologies, for the NNSA. So when Garcia and McCasland both appear around Albuquerque and both appear around Honeywell-linked NNSA facilities or management structures, I do think that's worth noting. But I want to be precise here. I'm in no way saying Honeywell is responsible for any of these cases at all. I'm not alleging any sort of cover up with this. They're a big company. They employ like tens of thousands, I think over 100,000 people. So it's not a surprise with this. It just shows that it's kind of part of that infrastructure. So what I'm saying is that there are links to the broader NNSA linked New Mexico ecosystem, and that this goes back to that of the Los Alamos National Laboratory also. For me, the more interesting link isn't the specific companies alone. It's the chain. Garcia links in to Albuquerque through certain companies, McCasland links through certain companies historically, and these also link back to Los Alamos National Laboratory. And that brings also Casias and Chavez back to Los Alamos again, the same national laboratory. That does not prove that the cases are connected, but it does show that there's several of these names that sit close to the same national laboratory and nuclear security environment. Further to this, Reza worked with McCasland, but also even at NASA's JPL. There are some documented links between JPL and Los Alamos National Laboratory, particularly through Mars missions. Los Alamos developed the ChemCam for NASA's Curiosity rover, which was delivered to JPL, and Los Alamos also led or co-developed SuperCam for the Perseverance rover. So if we're looking at Monica Reza's JPL connection, it does place JPL in the same wider space science sort of national laboratory collaboration network as Los Alamos. Again, that's not evidence of wrongdoing or direct connection between individual cases, but it does show that JPL and Los Alamos are not isolated worlds. They have worked together on high-profile NASA missions, especially Mars rover instrumentation. There also appears to be a movement of senior people between these institutions. Some of these contractors, they've taken over management of other ones at certain times. It's hard to say things because obviously I don't want to imply anything to any of these contractors. I'm just trying to state things that are of note, but it does show movement between these. When they take some over, they've recruited people. I think a 10-person leadership team that had entirely Los Alamos National Laboratory backgrounds. You know, that may be completely normal in such a specialized field, but it reinforces the point that these organizations are not isolated from each other. Something else of note here is that of Aerojet Rocketdyne, the company that Reza worked for years, is a subsidiary of L3 Harris. Because this is not just a vague aerospace company sitting somewhere in the background. L3 Harris appears in several areas that overlap, again, with Los Alamos National Laboratory, Sandia, and the NNSA world. For example, in DARPA's quantum benchmarking program, DARPA identifies L3 Harris as one of the teams working on the benchmarks and applications, whilst Los Alamos National Laboratory provided subject matter expertise, software integration, and test evaluation capabilities. So that places, again, these contractors, these companies within that same Los Alamos National Laboratory sort of framework, that ecosystem. Even though that doesn't really show a direct management or employment relationship between them, they're still kind of in this ecosystem. There is also the space-based nuclear detection angle. So Sandia and Los Alamos developed the Global Burst Detection System, which is carried on GPS satellites and is designed to detect nuclear detonations from space. L3 Harris is also a major GPS payload provider. But again, you sort of note that these organizations operate in overlapping areas in GPS, space, nuclear detection, and national security mission areas. Then there's a strategic weapons side. Los Alamos is responsible for systems such as the W76 and the W88 in the US nuclear stockpile. And Los Alamos National Laboratory's weapon engineering work includes testing, surveillance, certification support. And again, it's hard to say this because I don't want to say the names too much in case there's some sort of implication from this. There's certain contractors that also support certain instrumentation in this infrastructure. So yes, there is this kind of link between them, and they do all fall under this kind of ecosystem of nuclear detection systems, strategic weapons testing, the NNSA mission. There's overlapping ways that are much stronger than a simple, this is the same state, same industry. What do you expect? Sort of coincidence. And again, I've just got to state, I'm not claiming this proves any involvement or any disappearance or anything like that or of any of these people. I'm saying that this is basically an institutional map that it's a bit denser than it first appears. So when we look at each of these kind of these areas, you've got the DARPA quantum benchmarking program, the space-based nuclear detonation and detection, and the nuclear deterrent and strategic weapons testing. The strongest link between all of these is the space-based nuclear detonation detection and the nuclear deterrent and strategic weapon testing areas. These two programs, or kind of areas really, have fairly decent links to all of these cases and these ecosystems from these cases. When we add in Garcia's link with the Kansas City National Security Campus, we arrive at the nuclear deterrent and strategic weapons testing. Now, what is this exactly? When I refer to nuclear deterrent and strategic weapons testing, I'm not talking about a single neat program with one name. I'm talking about the wider NNSA stockpile, stewardship, and modernization system. That's the work used to keep the US nuclear weapons safe, reliable, certified without full-scale nuclear explosive testing. That includes surveillance of existing weapons, non-nuclear component testing, flight test instrumentation, environmental testing, strategic delivery system testing, and life extension or modernization work on these weapons. This is where Los Alamos and the several other companies come into play, really. This is where they overlap quite strongly. Los Alamos is one of the core nuclear weapons laboratories, and the other companies I mentioned kind of work heavily on the non-nuclear systems, safety, arming, fusing, firing, integration and testing side. Some that work on the manufacturers and the procures of many of the non-nuclear components used in the US nuclear weapons, and supports the current stockpile systems and modernization programs. So when KCNSC appears in the Garcia case, the relevance is not simply there's one corporation here that's kind of relevant. It's the relevance is that the KCNC sits inside the same NNSA nuclear security and stockpile modernization enterprise as the other contractors do, and Los Alamos as well. At this stage, I'm kind of leaning towards, when you take all this evidence on board, I'm not leaning toward a suggestion of some, has been put out there, some private contractors or anything like that. In fact, the pattern I'm seeing may point to a different direction entirely. What stands out to me is that several areas of these cases appear near the same sensitive national security ecosystems. So you in these ecosystems, obviously we said nuclear deterrence, strategic weapons testing, space-based nuclear detonation detection, aerospace systems, and in some cases, quantum or advanced research. And this also aligns with recent reports about Anthony Chavez's work. Based on the pattern of mapped, I think foreign interference is more likely an explanation to explore than any corporate involvement. That does not prove foreign interference. I want to be clear about that. I don't have evidence that a foreign state was involved in any of these deaths and disappearances. But given the sensitivity of the work and the institutions involved, foreign intelligence interest is a reasonable question to ask. US agencies themselves openly recognize that nuclear laboratories, defense technology, strategic weapon systems, and advanced research are foreign intelligence targets. So for me, I don't know if I entirely believe the recent speculation on private contractors so much, but I feel more based on the evidence that these were people, sites, or projects sitting in a space that foreign intelligence services would naturally be interested in. Or perhaps some other kind of some other third party we don't yet know of that operates outside the standard national infrastructure, as it were. So I'm not presenting this as proof of wrongdoing. I'm not presenting this as a research lead. It's just a pattern, and the pattern I'm seeing is a repeated return to Los Alamos and these contractors and in the linked work and the contract and management world around those sites. And that could very well just turn out to be a total coincidence. You know, these areas, they will be overlap. There will be. Or it may simply reflect how concentrated this kind of national security work is in New Mexico. But I do think it's strong enough to document this. What is of note is in these areas listed above, the links to the individuals are more institutional links. Due to the confidential nature of such things, it would be hard to get anything definitive, like, you know, on certain research interests, what they're currently working on. So we have to kind of look at this in terms of the institutional, the organizations they work for are linked, but could be in totally different departments. So whilst there are definitely institutional overlap links, there could be zero links elsewhere. So it could be a sort of apophenia, as it were. Of course, it could be the converse. There could be an even stronger link than what we don't realize. Or perhaps if there's a ratio of cases that are genuine and some are not, which is highly likely to be the case, then when we factor in those that aren't the part of the sinister sort of collective, then how does this change those links? And it may potentially link to another area that's just completely overlooked. But here we can see there are links between Casias, Chavez, McCasland, Reza, Garcia, and Lane. And going back to Lane as well, there were reports of her dealing with quantum computing as well, so that might be of note. You know, maybe it's witness protection that these have gone in away from any possible foreign interference. I could understand McCasland and Reza and Chavez for this, but I'd be unsure about Garcia and Casias and Lane possibly as well. I could see. I do think these are suspicious, but I don't think they're suspicious in a conspiratorial way. I feel this could be perhaps more a geopolitical cause. The truth is, we'll likely never know. It's wheels within wheels, as the saying goes. Comment below. What's your thoughts on this? Am I being naive here? Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.